Good evening, everyone. Today we are starting our first session, Infini-tea Insti, Instagram live episodes from Research Affairs account. So today's guest is David Mendes, who is the host and producer of Papa PhD podcast. So I'm sure that many of you have gone through his profile and also his website or listened to some of his podcast after receiving the email. So I'll just ask him to give a short intro about himself.
So hi everyone. First, I want to thank you for the opportunity of being here. I'm on the other side of the planet here in Montreal, Canada. Here, I don't know what weather it is where you were in Madras today, but here it's freezing and there's snow everywhere. So it's probably fairly different from what you guys are going through. But yeah. Just to present myself, I have a PhD in cell biology. I did my PhD, I got into a PhD program in Portugal in the University of Coimbra. And this PhD program allowed me to come here to Montreal, to the Montreal Neurological Institute at McGill University to do the research for my PhD. And that's it. I finished my PhD, I defended in 2010. And after that, I did different things, and they were not research. So right after my PhD, first I got a position as a tutor for distance education in a school board here in Canada. Then after that, I worked for almost 5 years as a medical writer in an agency that works mostly with pharma companies and prepares content for pharma companies. And then eventually things evolved. Also, I had my first child with my partner, and I decided to go freelance and to go back to one of my passions, which is languages, and to take on this. It was a kind of a full-time freelance gig with also a company that works in continuing medical education and translating materials from English to French for quite a long time. This was in 2014-15, and now I've gained that client went away. I've gained other clients, and I even was able to find clients who allow me to do different things that just translating. This is it. Apart from that, if we go a little bit further back, I was always a curious kid. I thought I was going to be an inventor. Eventually, also I thought I was going to be I dreamt of being an astronaut. But where my curiosity and I was good at languages. And it was definitely my second passion, but also at biology, math. And eventually I did a bachelor's in microbiology and genetics at the University of Lisbon in Portugal. And that's it. Between finishing my bachelor's and starting my PhD, there was a few years where I stayed at the lab where I did my final project at the University of Lisbon. After that, I got the chance to work for an equivalent of the FDA in the States. Here in Portugal, it's kind of a governmental organization that regulates medicine and pharmacy. And at that time, there were there was very little penetration of generic drugs in Portugal. So the government decided to take people who were recently out of university, teach them this presentation, and send them throughout the country to talk with physicians to kind of dispel a lot of the resistance that was and the misconceptions that were there about generic drugs. I did that for a year. The government changed, the program was shut down, but through networking from that project, I was hired to do it was kind of a TA position, giving lab classes and and working with a professor in a private university in Lisbon. And I was giving classes of biochemistry 1, cell biology 1, things like that. And that's when I saw, I really enjoyed teaching, and I thought that was going to be my calling. And when I saw the level at which professors were teaching versus what I was doing, I said, okay, I need to go get a PhD. That's how I ended up, applying to different PhD programs, more, let's say 5 years after my bachelor's. I think this kind of sums it up. And today I am still doing translation, proofing, also transcription, all in the biomedical domain. And since last year, I've started the podcast, Papa PhD, and it was, a part of from everything. I've always been a tinkerer. I'm not an inventor like I thought when I was a kid, but tinkering and like audio. I had some gear, and I've always had this will to give back to the graduate student community, because I was invited to career panels year after year after I had finished my PhD, and I felt that some of the doubts, some of the fears were the same year after year. And I said, okay, I'm going to start this podcast, and I'm going to just invite people who did their PhDs and did many different things. And this way, I think people who listen to the PhD, to Papa PhD, will be able to identify with some of these guests and see that, oh, they have the same fears, or they went through the same fears and obstacles that I did. And, oh, this is so interesting what they do. I can do this. And it maybe being a professor, if it's not for me, it's not the end of the world. There's this whole world of things that I can do after my PhD. This is kind of, in a nutshell, the whole story.
Yeah, actually, it's quite interesting to hear from you, because you have taken several roles and taken up several roles in your career, and it's very important for us to understand different career options and not just stick to a few of the well-known traditional ones.
Mm-hmm.
So before beginning the set of questions, I would like to ask one thing. Like you have interviewed different people from different domains, right? So you might have a favorite podcast interview question. So is there anything specific which is very favorite, which you ask all the guests?
Okay, the favorite things. One thing that I think is very sensitive, and that when a guest says yes to talk about it, I'm very, very happy, is mental health. Did you go through mental health difficulties during your PhD? And it's pretty amazing to see how many say, to different levels, how many say yes, and then discuss what tools they used, what resources they looked for, and what strategies they had to deal with it, to maybe take a break and get their balance back. So I would say it's not a question, right? It's a subject, but it's a subject that if the guest wants to talk about, I'm really happy. Now, a specific question. You're surprising me with this, but I would say anything that has to do with strategies or tactics to overcome an obstacle. Because once we're in grad school, there will be obstacles there, and from different nature. Experiments that don't work, like hypotheses that are shut down, or funding issues. There's many things that can happen during a PhD, plus the fact that you're trying to discover something new and innovating, and it's the results are never guaranteed, right? So it's normal to go through some obstacles. So anytime I'm able to get a tip or a trick from from a guest, that's definitely something that I really like. And that's it. As you know, you've listened to some episodes. The conversations are not set in a specific order of questions. So sometimes you get some gold nuggets, and sometimes they're at the beginning of the interview, sometimes they're at the end. It's a bit unpredictable like that.
Okay, so actually I promised them that I'll tell why I chose a sorting hat.
Yeah.
So because first I thought of doing something which was which was your favorite film character, but I couldn't find any filter for Lord of the Rings. Mm-hmm. So I decided to choose the sorting hat of Harry Potter, because you help us making a good decision, right? I think that after watching the session, we'll be able to identify who we are and where we stand in this graduate journey. So that's why I chose this sorting hat for this session.
It's a great idea, yeah. And it's very important, one thing you're saying, which is, you know, when you put on the sorting hat, you have different houses you can fall into. And it's the same thing with the PhD. I just had a conversation this last week's episode with Paul Yaknin, and he said something, and it's really true, and I've experienced it, which is when you talk with first year or second year PhD students and say, okay, let's talk about other career possibilities, it's a bit of a shock to the students, because it's like, it's almost like the way he said it is, it's like telling them, okay, you're probably not good enough to become a professor, so let's talk about something else. And this is their perception, right? The thing is that today, to be a professor, there's just only, you know, only that many positions open out there. So a lot of you are going to have to find other things to do after your PhD. It can be research in industry. It can be working in university, but, you know, outside of the research system, there's other positions. There's people doing promotion of science. There's people doing outreach. There's so many things that can happen. But the fact that you bring up the sorting hat is, you should consider different possibilities. So I think it's a great idea.
Thank you. So yeah, so I think now we'll move on to the question section. So I had actually split up into 4 different sections. So the first one is related to your career, like how you landed up here and what you enjoy the most and so on. So the first thing is, what would you have liked to know before starting this career? Like one piece of advice before ending up here, if someone had told you.
Yes. So right now, if there's one thing that I would have liked to do differently and to know before embarking in the you know, medical communication, medical writing, medical translation, it would have been definitely to start networking early, to start talking with people who do different things at an earlier time, not just in the last year, not just at the same time as I was writing and just looking for a solution very quickly and with, you know, with not much time to do it. And this comes up in almost every conversation that I have with people on the podcast. The importance of 2 things. Well, one thing is given when you're in a group doing research. You're going to have meetings with your group.
Yeah.
But then it's less frequent to have meetings with people outside the group. Sometimes you do. Where at the MNI where I was, there was always a moment where we were going to either present or be part of a discussion on a presentation of someone from another group, but still from the same research institute, right? But what has come out of Papa PhD and the conversations I've had is the importance of interdisciplinary conversations. Talking with someone from another department. You're in cell biology, talk with someone studying philosophy. You know, you're studying history, talk with someone in engineering. And one of the things that this brings is it enriches your kind of inner universe of ideas. You can, if you talk of your project with someone from a really different domain, they might come up with ideas for you that you would never had come by on your own. And this is still within academia, right? And then in this last, like again in this episode with Paul Yaknin that I published last week, he said something that I find that's really important, but it's sometimes difficult, especially like I remember in the life sciences. It's really, especially if you're working with animal models, it's all your time is almost dedicated to what you're doing in terms of research, because your mice are going to be born, you know, in 2 days, and it can be Sunday, it can be Saturday, doesn't matter. But if you can, you know, if you can have within your PhD, your graduate school experience, could be your master's too, if you can have some sort of interface with the private sector, an internship, some sort of collaboration, either with another department, like I said, but also if it's with the private sector, that is a great plus. So if there was something that I would have liked to have my eyes opened before the end part of the PhD, it would have been reach out to more people have more experiences outside the universe of your project and of your subject. That, I think that would be the one that I choose.
Okay, here actually I would like to make self pitching of ideas, like what we do in IIT Madras Research Affairs teams. So one of our initiative is to connect with industries and help students to present their thesis or dissertation or project ideas to get just simply to get opinions from industry experts. So currently we have that program going on simultaneously. So yeah, I think we have got validation from your end as well, like how important it is, and also whomever is watching here, we encourage you to come forward and participate in this initiative. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. It's immensely important. Now, just a question: at IIT, people who come out with what degrees? Is it more engineering? Maybe PhD in engineering? Can you just give me a snapshot of what your students become after going through IIT?
Yeah, so we have 16 different departments which covers engineering, management as well as sciences. So you can study anything you want. We also have ocean engineering as a subject, and we also have proper PhD degrees offered in management as well as sciences. So equal importance is given from the administration side to ensure that you can study any degree you want and pursue any path you want. So
Yeah, it's wonderful. And those, I'm just thinking, like management, engineering, science, I hope they interconnect and that they collaborate, because it's a great combination. And I feel that it's fairly easy to find an interface with the private sector, with industry. But it's great that the university is, the institute is offering that to students, because a student on their own, I was very shy, I was very introverted, and it wasn't natural for me to go looking. And plus, I was a foreign student. My status was visiting research student, so there were different things that kept me quite isolated. Plus, because I wasn't this outgoing guy, I didn't have that impetus to do it on my own. So the fact that the institute themselves are fostering this is really, really good.
So the next question is any one myth about your profession that you want to debunk?
So one myth about, and let's say medical writing or medical communications. One myth that can be out there is, oh well, this job is going to be taken by native speakers, by people from the US, people from the UK, whatever, or if you're in France, people from France. And I am not a native English speaker. And if you want to go into medical writing, there's one thing that's important, is that, well, first, you're someone who either reads a lot or writes a lot, and it's something you love, and that it's something that you feel and that you're strong about, because these companies that work in these domains give a lot of importance to attention to detail. So if you're someone who has a blog and who has I don't know, who writes in a university magazine and who thrives doing it, don't stop yourself from applying for positions in this domain, because you say, oh, but it's not my first language, I'm never gonna be able to make it, or I'm not I'm not a national from this or that country, I'm not going to do it. Like one of my guests, my recent guests, she's just now being hired as a medical writer, and she's from Hong Kong originally. She's from Hong Kong. It's Vera B.S. Chan. She's from Hong Kong. She's in Paris, and she's working now as a medical writer in English for a company there. So that is a myth, that if it's something that's blocking you right now, just erase it from your mind. If writing and medical writing and science communication is something that you feel strongly about, go for it.
So the next thing is, what is the biggest turning point in your career? Like something which changed everything upside down?
A big turning point in my career was, well, it was the change between medical writing and starting to freelance as a translator. and there were different things there in this company that I was, because I think I mentioned it before. I've always liked languages. I speak Portuguese, I speak French, I speak English, I speak a little bit of other languages. I've tried to learn Hindi, but it's not easy. But I was feeling that I was my skills were underutilized being a medical writer in a company that was exclusively working in English. And someone that I knew got this position as a project manager in a company that did continuing medical education, and she gave me a call. Said, "Hey, we're not really happy with our translation service, and I was wondering whether you were interested." And it was a big moment. Okay, I'm going to drop this, like it's a job. It's 9 to 5 with all the all the trimmings, and I'm going to go start work from home on my own as a freelancer. And I'm super happy that I did it, because this allowed me to then start developing other skills too, and get other types of projects. But that was the big change. Was, okay, I'm going to go for this thing that's a little less stable, a little less predictable, but that I know I'm going to thrive more in, because now I'm going to be working with at least 2 languages, and with projects that are gonna be changing at a different pace. So that was it, from going from being an employee to being self-employed.
Okay, yeah. So yeah, now before asking the next question, again I would like to make a pitch about our Research Scholars Day, which is the annual flagship event for research scholars, which is going to happen in the month of April. So the theme which we have chosen is Shunya, which means zero. So one of the perspectives of why we chose this is how the last year COVID actually changed our life. Like, it was like a total, it vanished a lot of things, and this year it is helping us to recover from whatever happened in the previous year. So my question is, how did COVID actually change your life, or how did you actually manage it? Was there any changes within yourself professionally, and also did you learn something new?
Mm-hmm. Can you I'm just curious about Shunya. I didn't get the link between the zero and 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 COVID. Is it because it's a new start?
Yeah. So we are
Okay.
trying to have a new start this year after everything that happened in the previous year.
Okay. Because I've heard Shunya, but in another context, in the context of Buddhism and things like that. So, how did COVID impact me professionally? First, those first weeks when the virus had arrived here in Canada, and there was a lockdown, etc. Because I'm a freelancer, because I'm self-employed, and I'm getting contracts from clients, and everyone was kind of in shock. There was the number of contracts started going down. Now, this wasn't specifically bad, because the other thing was that now the schools were closed at a certain point, and the kids were left at home. So the fact that I had less work, in a way, made it easier to deal with the fact that now there was homeschooling and things like that. But because I'm working in the biomedical domain, eventually it was the opposite. It started that there was a lot of work, and that work was a lot of it was about COVID. Not all of it, but especially one of my clients who is very focused on actuality and the news, the news in the health domain. There was a lot, and like rush projects, things that needed to be done fairly quickly, to be published fairly quickly. Eventually, and I think you can tell me your experience, but eventually there was this shock, and eventually you got used to it, to this kind of new normal. I almost don't want to call it that, because it needs to end, but we got kind of used to it, and now even kids are back to school, so there's really a kind of a sense of normality, even though here in Montreal we have a curfew now from 8 p.m. to 5 a.m. It's a curfew. No one should leave the house unless you're an essential worker, etc.
Okay. So you're saying that it was all a mixed effect for you, because professionally to some extent it was useful because you were in the biomedical domain.
Yeah, so the fact that I'm in this domain means that that first dip eventually came back to normal, and even sometimes more than normal, because there was this rush, and there were other things. Some of my clients were able to get these big projects approved, which were funded with the stimulus packs that the government was giving to companies. So companies now were kind of shut down. People were working from home, and the government gave stimulus so companies could, for zero cost, get training from different providers. And some of my clients are these providers. And then I had like these big rushed translation projects for these clients who directly as a result of COVID had these huge projects now approved for some fairly big companies.
Okay, thank you. So the
But
next,
just a note, it was hard at times. It was hard dealing with this new reality of having the kids at home all the time. And I think it was a challenging adaptation for a lot of parents out there.
okay. So our next question is, what is your routine and how do you manage to keep learning to stay updated in your field?
So my routine, a lot of the routine of the day, when you have, I have a 6-year-old and a 10-year-old, a lot of the routine of the day is around them, like taking them to school, picking them up to school. So let's say I'm going to talk about my ideal routine. And lately I haven't been able to follow it, although today I did. Ideally, I wake up before the kids, and the kids wake up at 6:30. So it means that I would wake up at 5:30, so that I can prepare some posts for social media, answer some emails, and have that part of the day settled when it's time to take care of breakfast and take care of sending the kids to school. Then it's because I work from home, and now it's different because my partner always also is working from home. So but then usually I have either interviews to record that in the morning, and I try to work, to have those limited to 2 days of the week, and the other days of the week, once the kids go to school, I pick up on whichever translation projects are there and any client communication, etc. Then the day finishes really quickly. Around 3:30, I need to be at school picking up the kids, and then eventually, when they're at sleep, starting maybe at 9, I do another little shot. But yeah, this is the ideal. So this is more or less my day to day. But ideally, and I think if you can start the day early, it's almost magical how much you can do and how free you feel of some of these things. Once it's like 9 a.m. and okay, I've done my emails, my I don't know, Instagram, Twitter posts are already scheduled. It's freeing for whatever is there to do on the projects.
Okay, thank you. So actually we are done with the first section. Now the second section we'll focus on questions related to master's and PhD degree. So in this, the first question is how to make your PhD life fruitful and efficient.
So I kind of mentioned it a little bit before. I'd say one of the first things to not ignore, and that can make your PhD much more fruitful, and even your master's, is do not stay too isolated in your research. Take part in whichever student groups are there. Could be reading groups that are there. If you're later on in your thesis, writing groups. So community, having this way of not being alone in your project. So and I'm talking about peers, right? About people who also are doing the PhD, but sharing with them in this way allows for you guys to share your strategies, maybe share your routines, like you were just asking for my routine. You'll find out, oh, this is how you organize your day. Okay, maybe this is going to work for me better. Just the fact that you are mingling with other people and people who are working on subjects that are different is going to be a big plus. Then I would say being at university is a special moment of your life, and universities have a lot to offer. Maybe you can talk a little bit about that, but have a lot to offer that you don't have once you leave university. Once you leave graduate school, there's it, you know, and it can be counseling services, it can be a gym, it can be you know, different, like I was saying, different student groups, you know, a theater group, or there's so many things that are offered by university that you don't have once you leave. So another thing that's very important is be aware of what's offered, and training. If there's training in science communication, if there's training in resume writing, etc., if there's training on other skills that are more professional related, take them. Don't miss out on them, because I have talked with people who say, well, I knew these things were there, but I told myself I didn't have the time to do them. And even I think today, because most of this probably is online, because I don't know how confinement is now in Madras, but you probably can even do this on your own time, as you know, as a webinar, or anyway, this really depends on what's offered. But two things: community, be part of groups, have conversations with different people, don't stay alone, take advantage of whatever's offered, and physical activity. I don't know if I've mentioned it. I don't know. I don't know if there's a. By the way, congratulations on. I saw the highlights of the India-Australia cricket. It was a huge game that was last week, right? So congratulations on that. I'm not a follower normally, but somehow last week it popped up on my YouTube, and I was like mesmerized for those like 10 minutes seeing that that summary. But yeah, if there's a cricket club, in my case, there was a softball club, there was a soccer, not a club, but there were groups of students, and we were taking part in leagues, in intramural leagues. That's a big plus of being in university, and it's a loss for you if you're not taking part in it. Now, the other thing, and I'm talking a bit long, but there's because I've been talking of you getting things from around you while you're in university. There's a second thing, which is if you have an idea of, okay, I'd love, and it feels that like that IIT Madras is already doing this for the students, but okay, I'd like to talk about policy. I'd like to create a group of people to talk about science policy, and it doesn't exist here yet. Instead of saying, oh, bummer, it doesn't exist, create it. You know, go speak to professors or to the department and say, hey, we'd like to start a seminar series on science policy. So the last thing that I would say is, if there's something that you wish that existed but it doesn't, maybe it's just that, you know, someone hasn't had the idea yet and you just did, so try to make it happen. And this will do two things. You're not going to do this alone, so you're going to meet people and engage in conversation. So again, it's going to start this kind of you know, virtuous cycle of engaging in communication, meeting new people, and growing your network in a way.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I think that's why we are all here to listen to you on like Monday evening. Actually, today is the first day of our next semester starting, so I think still people are enthusiastic to join today.
Yeah, that's yeah. You had told me that the exams are over, right? So it's a bit of a breathing and thinking about the future. I think it's great.
Yeah. So the next question is, if you join a specific project for either your master's or PhD, like fixed project, like after joining, you realize that you are not fit for it. So what to do then?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a tough question, because once we engage in these things, people around us have expectations. Maybe you admire your supervisor and you don't want to disappoint them. But there's two things: either you feel that you're not right for the position, and let's talk about that, or the subject is not right for you. And the first thing is, if you identify, this is something that happens in the first month that you're there, you go talk to another program head, or and you have to tell this to someone who's higher up so that they can place you in another project. Now, there's something here that might be behind what this question, and I think you feel that this question from people around you, and there's the question of the imposter syndrome. Why are you feeling that you're not good enough for the project? So if it's good enough, because you said the word that you use is if you're not suited for it, right? Imposter syndrome is something that a lot of us go through. And even later in professional life, once you change jobs, you feel that you see people around you who are doing so well and who are, stellar, either professionals or students, and you feel inadequate. It's just a mind process, and it's normal to feel it. And maybe just naming it, if someone is listening and has this feeling that, oh, all the other students are so much brighter than me, well, you're just starting and you have your path to follow. If you were accepted into a PhD program, into a master's, it's because you have what it takes to do it. And just don't let yourself be discouraged by this feeling, which is, again, normal. I felt it. Most part of my guests on Papa PhD have felt it and mentioned something like it. So that's why there's kind of two ways to answer to this question: is don't let yourself be discouraged by imposter syndrome. And again, conversations with people from other departments can help in or even with your peers. And once someone you can feel that is very bright, you can have at a lunch table, you can see sometimes you can even see, oh, this person has the same feeling that I have of inadequacy. Okay. The other way is, if the subject is not good for you, or if you feel the culture of the institute, or I don't know, something in the environment of where you're doing your project is either toxic to you or really not working for you, the earlier you talk to someone higher up to find a new supervisor, a new project, the better. And it could, if you're okay with your group, but it's just the project that is not working for you, you can also talk with your supervisor. But as the sooner the better. I don't know if this answers your question, but I really wanted to talk about imposter syndrome, because I think it's an important thing that if we don't have a name for it, it can really be a snag in our way and prevent us from moving forward.
Yeah, I really think imposter syndrome is the right word, because most of us have gone through and we are not even aware that we are going through the same thing. So unless we talk to someone, either a colleague or an expert, we'll never get to know that it's actually a very common feeling. So
yeah, if you have a mentor, someone outside, or it can be someone in your committee, someone that you feel safe, that you're in a safe space with that person to talk about it, and you'll see that it's something that can be diffused, and that as you go, you will lose that feeling of being an imposter.
So actually we have a club called Sati, which actually emphasizes on mental health. They frequently conduct programs, as well as they have a support system for students who want to chat when
That's perfect.
They want some directions. So yeah.
Is there a is there a URL you can share for that? I don't know. And is it well known by all the students? I'm just wondering if now is a good moment to kind of share that.
Yeah.
I'm putting you on the spot now.
I don't think I can take the URL, but yeah.
It's okay. Well, you know what? We can put it in the comments later on. But it's great that it's offered. And again, like I said before in the conversation, these resources are precious. You have them while you're at university. So if you need to use them, don't be afraid and use them now. They're there for you, and you're gonna grow as a person, as a researcher, and as a future professional by using them.
So our next question is, if a student has two profs or more advisors in the committee, maybe it could be interdisciplinary or it could even be from an industry expert. So how to manage the conflicting objectives set by the different members in the panel?
Mm-hmm. This is a difficult one because usually there's a main supervisor. The other people in the committee are there to kind of keep an eye and evaluate with a different mind, right? The progress of the student. Now, one of the things is, once you're a graduate researcher, and again, I'm having so many quotes from last week's episode, but one of the things that Paul Yaknin said in the episode that I believe completely, and that's been mentioned with other people too, is once you're doing your PhD, even your master's, you're a grown-up. You are an adult. You're not simply a trainee. You're someone who is doing a job of discovering something. So there's different ways. There's different ways people function and groups function. There are groups where the word of the supervisor is the word of God, and then you need, everyone needs to follow. But ideally, the ideal situation is when you're meeting with the committee, you're an adult and a grown-up with a project and with ideas, with hypotheses in your own mind, in your own self about your subject. And ideally, you discuss from grown-up to grown-up, whichever decisions are to take. Of course, the people on the committee have more experience, right? They have worked on their domains, and they have proved their proficiency and their scientific acumen in their own domain. So of course it's intelligent to take heed to what they say and take their suggestions. Now, if there's conflict between them, then it's quite difficult, right? Because you're still the one who's working towards your degree, and it's almost a question of who you, in your heart of hearts, who you consider to be your mentor in that situation. And for some people, I've seen it, it's not their direct supervisor. It's going to be someone else that they feel that's the mentor. I saw you had sent me those questions, and I saw that one, and it's not easy. Now, just this point of being a grown-up and of being entitled to your opinions, or it's an important one. We're not children anymore when or we're not even teenagers anymore when we're in graduate school. So it's good to go to the table with a formed opinion, and to put it on, to put it on the table. Then it really depends on what's the dynamic with your supervisor or supervisors. If there's one that's more senior, or that has more weight on the decision, sometimes you just need to go and try what they're saying, maybe to get to a point a few months later when it hasn't worked, or then you can go back and say, okay, let's now try my idea. But I don't know if you've had any experience yourself with this. I didn't, because of my situation. I was a visiting research student. I didn't have a committee for a long time, and eventually I felt this need to have one, because it was always, my conversation was always just with my supervisor. But it's a touchy situation. Go into these conversations as a grown-up with your opinion, and then try to gauge what's the right thing, based on I don't know, the authority or the hierarchy of the committee. I don't think I can give a better answer than this. I don't know if you have some insight on this.
I don't have an insight, but I just have a practical question. Like, for example, in a company, you develop a product in the R&D team. And when it's passed on to the manufacturing and quality team, sometimes it might not meet their requirements, right? But the R&D team might not be able to come up with a better solution than what they have right now. So
Mhm.
yeah, and I was actually thinking in those lines. How
Okay.
to
No, go ahead.
how to actually come up with a solution in this case, because only if the product meets the quality requirements or is able to be scaled up in manufacturing, only then we can release the product, right? So
Mhm.
what to do in such cases?
Mhm. Well, again, I don't have experience in industry, but I think there's different. Once you're in industry, there's different things. There are different imperatives. There's the economic imperative or financial. There's time and and there's yeah. Yeah, money and time. I think are, are two important ones. There's always politics too, but in this specific case, I think there will have to be some people who are more on the financial side in the conversation. The R&D will probably have to find what the best or the close to best solution is, and then it's gonna have to be a decision that has someone from each of these departments deciding, okay, what's the solution that we can do in the time that's allocated with the money that we have, and that's closest to the ideal. Yeah, again, I can't really give you a much better solution than that, but it's going to have to be a compromise of sorts.
Yeah, I think this is the best solution, because most often practically people end up with choosing like what can be done within the time limit and within the resources.
That's it. Once you're on the side of industry, and even I've heard from guests that sometimes there's this project that is started, and then if 2-3 months later results are not coming out, it's just dropped, and we go to something else, because the pace in industry is different, and the way of thinking in when you're doing R&D in industry is different. There's not infinite time to do something. If you we're going to try, if we want, let's say R&D says, oh, we could improve this process, or we could improve this feature, and we believe that in 3 months we have the results. Well, if in 3 months there's no results, often what happens is, well, we'll shut this down and move to something else.
Yeah, thank you for the elaborated answer. So the next question is how to build your profile towards getting an industrial job. Like, what are all the things we need to highlight in order to be placed in an industry after doing research degree?
Mm-hmm. So one of the things you've already mentioned that already happens at IIT Madras, which is internships. Spending some time, it could be 6 months, it could be 3 months during your master's or during your PhD. There's, in a private domain endeavor it could be industry, it can be an agency, it can be depending on what your PhD is. It could be doing management for the people who are doing management, right? And there's different positives to that. It's the experience. You're going to experience the culture. You're going to experience this thing that I said, that of the frame of mind being different, versus academic research or fundamental research versus R&D within an industry. The pace is different. And just the way people think about a problem and think about solutions is different. There are different imperatives, like I was saying, that are not present in academia. So do internships as much as you can. Also, if whenever there's a seminar with someone coming from industry wanting to talk to the students, don't miss one of those. And what that'll do, again, like an internship, you'll start hearing the language that they use, what keywords kind of come out of their mouth, and this is going to indicate to you what will be expected of you when you'll be having conversations with people who are hiring. Doing an internship is the best, because you'll also know what the culture of the company is, and you'll be networking. Now, if you do well in an internship, someone within the company will remember, oh, Vamika was really, really good and she's now sending her CV, and you'll be top of the list on those CVs, right? The second, so that is key, and the fact that you have that your programs integrate that is already a huge plus for you guys, really. So don't miss a chance of taking advantage of that, because it's a big missed chance. You can't have, once you're out of your academic track, you can't go for an internship, or at least not in that in that easy and simple framework. And then once, let's say, on your own, one thing you can do is, well, you can, on top of PhD, there's people who have gone to industry, so you can look for profiles online, and it could be through a podcast, it could be through a blog, through different interviews of people who have followed this industry or private sector path that you want, and trying to see, okay, what training did they get? If you go to LinkedIn, oh, they got a certificate in this, they got, and trying to see where you can fit that on your journey, some of these elements. And if you can, and if you want, if you have more questions for the person, reach out to them. Never be shy or afraid to go on LinkedIn and ask to contact someone and say, hey, I'm here, I'm from IIT Madras, I am doing my master's or my PhD in management. I really love your journey, and I'd love to chat a little bit about how you got there, how your PhD experience translates to what you do today. And just having one or two of these conversations is going to be so enriching for you. So that would be another thing. And then there's a personal work of introspection and of thinking in my PhD. Okay, there's my subject. Who is interested in my subject? People around me in the lab, people in groups that are doing research like I'm doing. But people outside, are they really interested in specifically the subject that I'm studying? If I'm going to R&D in industry, they'll be interested in maybe some of the the techniques that I've used if you're in the life sciences or chemistry or whatever. But they'll be interested in how I deal with data. They'll be interested in how I deal with learning new things, learning new skills. They'll be interested in how good I am at teamwork. So try to think of what in your PhD, what in your graduate school experience translates to these other universes. Of course, just like I said a little bit before, this is easier to do once you've had an internship and you've seen what these places look like from the inside, right? If you're just doing your PhD and doing this introspection, there are some tools online, I think, that can help you do that, and people. But anyway, introspection, internships, and conversations. I think that would be it. I think it gives a lot of choices to the people who are watching today. Of maybe someone is a bit shy to go talk with someone, right? But you can go in and try and find information in some other way. Yeah, I think that would be it. I think that would sum it up.
Okay, thank you. So the next question is, yeah, I have a tough time finding the topic for my PhD. Like, when do I realize that I have found the topic which is close to my heart? Like, when do I settle down?
Okay. First, if you, so I imagine this is someone who is at the end of their masters. But I would say this would usually come up in conversations with your supervisor. Depending, if you're coming from the masters, I've seen often people have kind of followed up what they did in the masters, but it's not true for everyone. How do you find the subject that is close to your heart? That's a tough one, because the person who is more knowledgeable than you of what are gaps in the knowledge in your subject field is going to be your supervisor or someone in your committee. So again, I'm using the word conversation so much today, but I think it's really key. In this case, I would go to either, I don't know, it could be a postdoc in a lab that works in a subject that you like, and try to tease out from them what they maybe first see what they're working on, and then tease out from them what is, what are pain points, let's say, or gap points in the field. And then from there you kind of collect this information, and eventually either from those conversations you're going to create your own, you're going to find your own thing, or one of these conversations is going to ring a bell and say, okay, this is what I want. But without going to someone, someone who's a little bit higher up already, and is more experienced in that subject field, I don't see another I don't see another path to do that. It could be also by talking with your master's supervisor, if you're coming out of the master's, and saying, and asking them, where do you think I could go from here? I think this subject that I worked on the master's, I'm done with it, but I'm not feeling what my subject is going to be in the PhD. Maybe they're going to be in a position to help you with that.
Yeah, so actually this is closely linked to another question as well, like should we choose an opportunity based on like a high profile and high ranking of an institution, or should we choose something which we like doing? So I think these two are related.
It's a very good question, and it depends on you. So people are not all the same. There's a term that you can use, neurodiversity. If you are someone who is very driven to producing like you're saying, high level publications, and if that's what drives you in life, sure, go to the big universities, big labs where it's high paced. But you need to be someone who is resilient to stress, because these are, of course, more stressful environments. But if that's the type of personality you have, definitely go there. But that is not the best way. The best way is the best way for you. If you have a passion, and if you want to be in a lab where you're going to have more freedom, where it's going to be less pressure to publish a lot, or to publish in big journals. But if you're passionate about a specific subject, choose the lab, choose the PI, choose the supervisor, and then give primacy to that. And visit, if you can, visit institutions or research centers. Visit and feel if, okay, is this culture good for me? Do I have the feeling that, because there's also another thing, you can, if you feel that you need a supervisor that's going to really coach you more, you need to select for that. If you already this very independent person, and like I was saying, very driven for production, and very, very independent, there are institutions that look for those types of candidates, and often these are in the high high level, high output type labs. So there's no one way. You have to choose the way that's good for you. I don't know if this answers it for you, but I've had this conversation before, and I feel this is the best advice that I can give.
Yeah, sure. Thank you. So I think we have talked a lot of hard topics. So now let's have a small fun session, which is nothing rapid fire round. I think it's going to be surprise questions, like coming fast. So if you won $1 million overnight, what will you invest it on?
Oh my gosh. $1 million overnight. I would invest in something that would increase social equality. Now, what it is, I don't know, but I think today we're seeing banks that are wanting to do uh, to do to work in a different way than banks have worked until today. Different organizations or people who are investing in these projects that really improve people's lives. I'm thinking of people who have difficulties or they are in poverty or in economic difficulty. So definitely it would have to be something that had this type of impact on society. It wouldn't be Bitcoin for sure. um, but yeah, this is so far from anything I've imagined. I never imagined I don't have a thought up question for this.
So,
Answer, I mean, a thought up answer.
yeah, so given your interest in social equality, we really wish that you win $1 million someday. So,
Thank you.
yeah. So the next question is, if you were to be quarantined in some other planet, assuming all planets are habitable, which planet will you choose?
Oh my. Okay. Uh, uh, well, that they're all habitable.
Yeah.
Okay, I would choose Saturn, just because the rings must be, the evening sky, even the day, during the day, it must be quite a view to have the rings there. Of course, it had to be to be habitable, and then I could see Earth from there too. This is it's an interesting question, but or a planet with a lot of moons. Something that would make the night sky and even the sky during the day very different from what we have here on Earth.
So I understand that you have some affinity for rings. So Lord of the Rings, your favorite characters.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
Okay. Now the next question is, you can choose to become one of these: a Nobel Prize winner, a best-selling author, a celebrated artist, or the richest CEO. I
The
can,
last one, the
yeah,
last one is,
richest CEO.
oh, richest CEO. My gosh, I'm going to say celebrated author. And again, hopefully it would be a book that people would read and that would help them improve their lives. That, I think that would be it.
Okay, that's interesting. So, okay. So, if you wake every day, you wake up, you realize that you can end up in one of the top ranked universities. So, assuming that this happens for like 3 days continuously, which universities would you like to land on?
So 3 years, 3 universities. Is that it?
3 days, every day, you
Okay.
wake up and you realize that you are sitting on a different university campus.
Okay. Okay. Hmm. Uh, I would say I would really love to go to um, St. Andrews in Scotland. So that could be one of the days. I could easily say IIT Madras, because it would it would be very very convenient right now. Although I'd really love to visit India at a certain time. But what two other universities I would visit? Definitely a university in Osaka in Japan. A long time ago, I applied to do to go do research in Osaka, so Osaka University in Japan, and a third one would have to be um, uh, hmm, what would the third one be? Um, yeah, Harvard in the States, just because of the so much that has that so much tradition, so much rich history there.
Okay. So, your most memorable conference trip?
So, okay, this is something that I want to tell to the students. because of my situation, because I was a visiting research student, because I had a project that I chose too risky of a project, and my supervisor didn't want to be scooped on it. I didn't do one conference trip during my PhD. There were some little conferences here in Montreal that I was allowed to go, and that's it. So sadly, I cannot really answer that question. And the important point to take out of this is, don't, and this is looking back at my at my path and things that I could have done differently, that I would have done differently, is whenever you go into a PhD, try to not put yourself in a situation where you're outside of the system and you don't have the same rights as all the other students, or that yeah. So choose a good place for you and try to make sure that wherever you go, you have access to to everything that the other students do too.
Okay, so we wish that you will have a very memorable conference experience as a faculty or as a speaker somewhere. So we wish that it will happen very soon. So
thank you.
Yeah, the last one is, what is the biggest professional achievement surprise would you like to receive in the next few years?
Oh my. Biggest professional achievement. Well, I'm really so I've started Papa PhD since 2019, summer of 2019, and I'm pretty passionate about it. I really love doing this project, although I'm doing it on my own. Financially, the time, it's all things that I put in there in the project, and out of my passion for the project. I would really love in the next 5 years that somehow this experience of Papa PhD turned into something professional, more in a way. I don't know. It could be within a national radio station or TV or being part of a platform or a program where I could use these skills. It could be interviewing skills, and it could be even talking about science, but to transform this, which is now a passion project, into something professional. And you've just mentioned, and thank you, that you wished me success in an upcoming conference or as a speaker or something like that. That also would be something great if it materializes in the next few years, that I'm able to take some of my experience, some of the know-how and the insights that I've gotten through Papa PhD, and to be able to put them out there into the world, to in a larger platform, to a bigger audience. So that will also be a very pleasing future to me.
Okay, sure. We wish you good luck for the same. So I think we have crossed like more than 1 hour. So we can actually invite questions from the audience if they have. If anyone wants to ask anything specific, you can drop in the chat box.
And so thank you to, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I was receiving requests for being in the live. I received many invites. Yeah, but if anyone is willing to ask a question directly to Papa PhD, please.
Yeah, you can do it through the chat. I was just going to say thanks to everyone. I've seen that there's been almost 30 people constantly here watching and listening to us, and thank you so much for listening. I hope it's been inspiring so far. And yeah, just hop on the chat and ask away. And if not, you had mentioned that there might be people who wanted to to know how to become scientists? Did some
Yeah,
of them come, or did some of them?
join, but I think they are shy to type in the chat. So it's basically small kids, maybe studying sixth or seventh standard,
Mhm.
who are very
For
much. Uh, yeah.
for kids who want to get into science, if you're curious and if you like to understand how things work around you in the world, how it could be how machines work, it could be how plants work, it could be how the universe works. Just read, and it could be online, it could be books. Get instructed, try to dig into this thing that's getting you curious. And the next step, and this depends, if you're shy, it can be a little bit difficult, is start talking to your, I don't know, to your grandma, explaining to your grandma how the planet system and the planetary system works, how the orbits organize, uh, one another. Oh, there's a question coming there. Anyway, read and talk, and then you'll see, you'll start developing this taste for it. And then just be good at school and be good at math. Do what you can to excel there, and then eventually you'll see that in university you'll have a chance to really dig into that and become a scientist eventually.
Yeah, so now we have some questions in the chat.
Okay, go ahead.
The first one is, what are the benefits of working on projects after MS, Masters versus PhD, considering the fact that the person has diversity of interests? Like he has multidisciplinary interests, so should he work on MS or PhD?
Mm-hmm. So I feel how I'm understanding this question, there's two things. There's the fact that the person has diverse interests, but then there's this question of how do I decide if I want to do a PhD, or what's the difference between stopping at the master's and continuing at the PhD?
Yeah.
If the type of job you want to do does not require a PhD, you're doing what I said, networking, talking to people in positions that attract you. And if you see that the PhD is not a requirement, those years of PhD, as the numbers that have come out, you will take a long time. So if you stop at the master's and start doing that job, you will get promotions, and if you do the PhD and then get that job, it'll take a long time to pick up that time that you lost in starting a job and having promotions and getting a better and better salary. So I would say if the master's fulfilled you in terms of your scientific, your need to dig in a little deeper into science, but if the job that fulfills you is there and is available right after the master's, I would say go for it. Go for your job. Now, if it doesn't, if you need to dig deeper, and if you're really motivated to go get into this. I don't know how many years a PhD is there in Madras, there in India, but it could be 5 years, or are you on the English model?
It's 5 years.
5 years. It's a long time. You need to really be committed to this investment in going to do research and into contributing to a domain. I don't know if I feel this is my answer now as to having diverse interests. Doing a PhD, if doing a PhD is something you feel really strongly about, you can always do your PhD, and then, because this is another aspect of mental health and balance in a PhD, is you can't cut your, you can't cut your you can't separate yourself from your personality and from your interests just because you're in a PhD. You actually should have at least 1 or 2 things that you do outside your PhD, and it could be art, it can be volunteering for different things, it can be writing, fiction or whatever. But it's important to have a healthy inner life during your PhD. So for the person who has many different interests, doing a PhD is not or should not equate to losing or separating yourself from those interests.
Okay, so the next question is advice related to thesis and paper writing.
Mm-hmm. One of the things that I didn't do, but that I've heard of a lot from guests and from conversations lately that is really helpful, and I mentioned it before, is finding or creating a writing group. So this, it's really easy if you're on your own to have this white page syndrome, or how do you call it? The writer's block. It's really easy. And there's a lot of resources out there, and you can pay for some of them. It's for courses on or for support with thesis writing, because there's techniques, there's ways to get rid of writer's block. One of them is to start with a kind of a mind map of what your thesis is going to be, and then flesh it out slowly, and then you'll see that it'll grow into first a section, and then a chapter, etc., etc. If you get in front of your blank page and you could just want to go from 0 to a filled page, that can be a big block right there. So start small, start with a central idea, and then branch out, and then you'll see, well, the mind map may change with time, but eventually that's the best way to ease yourself into the writing. But later on, I think it's really important to have at least one, let's say, accountability partner, with whom you're going to share objectives. You say, okay, next week we'll have half a chapter. Okay, done. And then you kind of owe to your accountability partners to do it, so it's going to kind of push you a little bit. But then there's a second aspect, which is maybe the way they think about it, or their strategy for writing, is going to help you improve yours. So that's another thing. Plus, if you're 2, 3, or 4, also that you can help each other think of actual of the actual subject, not the in-depth, but the how you're thinking of your subject, how you're approaching it. It might change by having conversations about writing with other people around you. So that would be my key advice, is create a writing group and have at least one accountability partner with whom you can have milestones to hit, and with whom you can discuss.
So the next question is how to manage literature survey if you are new to a research area. You don't have background knowledge in a particular field. How to manage literature survey?
Okay, for the literature survey, again, it's a little bit like the question before of how I find my perfect subject. You are going to have a starting point, and someone, especially if you're new to the subject, someone is going to have to point you towards this starting point. It can be one article, it can be 2, it can be it can be just a name of an author, and this usually is going to come from your supervisor or from someone in your committee. Now, there's another way also that's kind of similar to what I said before. There's writing groups, there can be reading groups. If you have again 2 or 3 people who, like you, are starting and are going through the same thing, the fact of doing this around the table together is going to have different reasons why it motivates you. We're gregarious beings, right? We like being with other people. So if you're like, sitting down on your paper and you see your colleague's friend there too, there's a motivation that comes from that, right? But then, apart from that, it's really digging. So you need to have someone who points you towards, who kind of gives you the first two or three pointers, and then you'll need to go from there. And maybe depending on people, some people really work really well together, alone, I mean, but I think having a group, and now it could be on Zoom. If you can't meet, really, you can be on Zoom or on Skype, whatever, together. You see each other on the screen, and you can maybe this is something that can help you.
Okay, thank you. So the next question is how to stay motivated and retain attention during online classes, and how to
Mm-hmm.
stay motivated towards research.
Mm-hmm.
Because actually, most of them who join in this July 2020 batch and even this Jan 2021 batch, they have not come to campus still. So all our classes are online. So they don't have any idea of how campus life would be and so on. So
Mm-hmm.
try this question, I guess. So how to stay motivated towards research in an online environment?
Yeah, this is a very difficult, very challenging period for research for universities throughout the world. And it's interesting, being a first year in whatever, in grad school or at university, is always a moment where you're a bit lost. And I think now, because not only it's your first year, now you're kind of getting the university experience through a computer screen, and it's not as engaging for sure as it usually is. And it's hard. It's not. I've never thought of how to stay more engaged with the with the computer screen, but it really depends on what type of work the teachers are doing, and are they giving you material to prepare for the Zoom, or because it's true that just being in front of a Zoom and listening, it's not as easy. One of the things that would help me, if I were in this situation, would be to be taking notes on with pen and paper, because if you are just looking and listening, your brain is going to be numb at a certain point, and you will kind of blank out. So for me, if I have one strategy, it would be to make a point of having it could be like just very schematic. It could be arrows, it could be keywords, but make a point of having one blank page or two filled by the end of the session, and this will actually help you with retention of what the person is sharing. Staying engaged with research, it's really tough in this situation, but have uh, I would say, as many meetings as possible. It could be it could be on Zoom. Uh, Meeting like journal clubs, like lab meetings. So talk with other people about the research as much as possible. And of course, if you're stuck at home, it's going to be again on the computer, but at least you'll be engaging in conversation instead of just receiving content. It's tough. It's tough for everyone. It's not easy. And if you are first year, it's even more challenging. Just, take this with patience, and eventually things will get back to normal. But try to help yourself to with these little strategies to stay engaged. Don't disengage. That would be my last word on that.
Yeah, thank you. You can choose to answer the remaining questions based on your time availability. So if you're available, you can continue to answer.
Mm-hmm.
Else, you can chat with them in messages. I mean, after the live. So you can actually choose to answer which questions you want to do, or based on your time availability.
Let me see what time it is. Okay. Yeah, we can answer a couple more, and then eventually, if people have questions for me, they can find me on LinkedIn easily, David Mendes da Silva, and there I'm more than even here on Instagram. If they want to shoot me a specific question, I'll be happy to answer. But maybe 5 more minutes, and then we'll see if people want to reach out to me on the platform.
Okay, so one question is, are there any advantages to applying to grad school while in college as opposed to after working for a while?
Um, there, it's really not linear. I think it's anything that is, you know, if you come straight from college and apply to a master's, or straight from the master's and apply to a PhD, things kind of, it's an easier process, let's say, right? Because you're already in the, you're already there, and people know, okay, you just finished your bachelor's in this or that. But I don't think it's a necessity. And what I think is, what is important is that when you do apply to grad school knowingly. Like, if you need to take a break after after college, and you feel that, okay, I need to go have my first job, do it. And you know, if you can, like I said, I worked after my bachelor's for 5, let me think, 28, yeah, for 5 years after so 5 years after I had finished my bachelor's, I decided, okay, I want to go into a PhD program. And that was my path. That was, you know, that was what felt natural to me. And I think it flows easier, let's say, if you do one thing after the other. But again, once you're finishing college, you're grown up. You're better taking decisions, conscious decisions. If you want to go into masters, it's because you want to go into a masters, not because it's just the next natural step. Yeah, it's better to do it after having thought about it, than to just you know, follow in the steps, just, you know, roll through the punches, like, let's say.
So you can let us know, like, where your podcasts will be available to listen, so that like, on what platforms is it available?
So the podcast is available on all podcast platforms, most of them. It's also available, anyway, there's a couple of platforms there in India that I submitted it to. One is Joe Savan, I think, and the other one is Ghana. I don't know if you know these. Yeah. Yeah, but if you know, they're on Apple Podcasts, they're on all the podcast apps for Android. If you look for Papa PhD, you'll find it. If you want to go to the website and see the show notes, etc., it's just papaphd.com. I've just created starter packs for people to more easily navigate the interviews, and they're by subject. And you just need to go to papaphd.com/start. And then you'll see that there's different subjects, and within the subjects, I've selected some interviews that I feel are really representative. So that would be another way to do it for sure. But if you go on your smartphone, on whichever, it could be Google Podcasts. If you go on Google Podcasts and write Papa PhD, it will come out really quickly, and then you can just scroll through the collection. Just to tell you, it's a bilingual. I'm in Montreal. We speak French and English here, so the episodes, some of them are in French. It's not 50-50, there's more episodes in English, but some of them are in French, some of them are in English. So if you know French, you're good to go. If not, just be sure to listen to the ones in English.
So yeah, so thank you very much, David, for joining us today, and so giving such elaborate as well as patient answers, sharing your insights from experience. I think it's a very collective experience from all the people you have interacted with, and I think it was useful to all of us, and we hope to see you soon in another occasion. So we have a small gift for you, like we made a small digital sketch, so I'll send it to you in a message later.
Oh my gosh, thank you.
Yeah, so
well, thank you. I'm honored to have been invited to be here today. I hope the students will have some take-home messages. But if some of the questions weren't answered, reach out to me. I'll be glad to answer and to take some time to help you with whatever questions you might have. I think this is a great initiative, and I'm looking forward to this series and to see who's going to come through these Infini-tea sessions. Thank you.
Yeah. So the next session will happen on coming Saturday, February 6th, with Melissa Pappas, founder of Emerging Creatives of Science from Australia. So Eco Sayad, I'm sure you might have seen her on Instagram. So it's on Saturday morning, 10 a.m. IST. So
okay.
People who joined today, please check out the next session also to join in upcoming sessions, and please share with your friends as well. So if you find Papa PhD podcast interesting, please share with your friends also, and also leave us the comments in all the social media platforms how you enjoyed this session, and also let us know like what other topics you want to listen to. And yeah, so that's it from my end as well. So
all right, well, thank you so much again. It was an honor. I see everyone giving thanks in the messages. It's heartwarming. Thank you. All the best. Never stay alone in your research, and try to not stay alone in your head. I know it's difficult today. We're stuck at our homes, but do a Zoom call your family, speak with your friends, and try to make the graduate school experience one of community instead of loneliness. And especially if you can branch out your ideas a little bit outside your domain, it's gonna be good for you and for your future.
yeah, thank you very much, David.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
We are available on YouTube as Career Development Cell Research IIT Madras. If you want to find us on Instagram, LinkedIn or Facebook, you can type IIT Madras Research Affairs Teams. If you want to write us, you can mail us at cdc_research@sml.iitm.ac.in.